most frequent way I see people reference The Boys is through a common point made about superheroes. Something like, you think if this superhero existed in real life, they would be cool and good like they are in their own series? I think they would actually be like one of the superheroes in The Boys. For example, Homelander is an obvious analog to Superman, who is a very good guy from what I understand. However, The Boys seems to propagate an idea that actually, if such a powerful being existed, they would never be such a perfect, idealized best guy ever, like Superman. They would be a terrible person, an evil narcissist who just uses their power for their own gain. They would be like Homelander. This point of analysis around The Boys reflects a broader idea that is even more. When people get a lot of power, it's gonna go to their heads, and they're gonna do bad stuff with it. We have a quote for this. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's something about power which inherently makes people turn evil, and I guess The Boys probably agrees with that, right? Billy Butcher, one of the show's main characters, seems to agree.
With great power comes the absolute certainty that you'll turn into a right cunt.
That quote reflects our common idea that power inherently corrupts, while also flipping a famous good superhero quote on its head. With great power comes great responsibility turns into, with great power comes you becoming evil, mirroring the many superheroes in this show, which are clearly based on other superheroes, but now they're not good people. So there, The Boys is saying that's what's up, superheroes would be bad in real life, and everyone on the internet is correct when they share that idea. Except no, obviously I'm leading this up to disagreeing with that. I think the series presents a more nuanced perspective on the corruptive nature of power, one that's closer to reality, and you can decide for yourself once you finish this video. I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that The Boys has this one-sided negative view of power. There's a lot that goes into it. First, the show really conveys a fear of power through displaying the strength and abilities of superheroes when compared to non-superheroes. Supes are extremely dangerous to those without superpowers to the point where they often kill people by accident and in extremely gruesome ways. It creates a palpable tension whenever you have someone with superpowers next to a normal person because the viewer knows that that normal person could be torn apart or die in any other horrific way at any moment. The Boys then connects this feeling to our own reality with scenes like this one, in which normal person Ashley uses her position as CEO to frame someone in order to save herself and A-Train. The guy they frame ends up being beaten to death, and Ashley then remarks that it's so easy to be a monster. We don't have people with superpowers in real life, but we do have people with more power and influence than others, and that makes it easier for them to cause harm. But these ideas are most explicitly explored with the story of Kimiko, a supe who in season 3 loses her superpowers for a bit, and it's kinda cool to her, cause she's like a normal person now. She doesn't even have the ability to use her powers to hurt other people, and so she feels like she can interact with normal humans on the same level. Power is not just something to be afraid of, but also something that psychologically divides those with power and those without it. Except the rest of Kimiko's story is much more positive. For more background, this girl used her superpowers to murder people for a while until she met The Boys, and then she became more mellow. Then, later in season 3, after she loses her powers, this dumb kidnapping plot happens and she realizes that she wants her powers back. Why? And then she gets back her super strength and stuff, and she uses it for exactly that. So power isn't something that can only be used for bad things, but power still corrupts. Like, a lot of powerful people do seem to be bad guys, and in The Boys, we see other characters gain power and do bad things with it. We see regular humans, Butcher and Huey, do drugs and get temporary superpowers, and they end up doing shitty stuff. Well, that's normal for Butcher. But Huey's normally a good guy, and now he's lying to his girlfriend and scheming. The power's going to his head. But hold your horses. There's still more to those scenes with Kimiko. Something else that allows her to let herself get her powers back is an important realization that she had blamed the powers for making her do bad things when really it was just herself. In other words, she told herself that power was corrupting her, but really she was just a bad person choosing to do bad things. And to be a good person, she doesn't have to give up her power, she has to choose to do good things. And the same must be true about Huey and literally everyone else. Okay, but what about the Vought Corporation and the Seven? These are very important parts of the story in which superheroes and other characters seem to become worse people as they gain power. The most popular superheroes are brought in here to be part of a prestigious team, but when Annie Starlight gets brought in, she quickly realizes that most of them are weird freaks that care too much about their public perception rather than on helping people, and are sometimes just outright evil. The story spends a lot of time showing how rising the ranks and gaining and maintaining power as a superhero in the Vought system means means focusing on public image and ratings, which often directly conflicts with morally good actions. The system directly incentivizes the corruption of people within it by rewarding scheming and evil behavior with more influence and power. But this is different from the basic power corrupts idea. The power itself is not what corrupts the supes, but the system in which they have power. Once again, the solution isn't to give up power altogether. Instead, what Annie does is use her platform to shine light on the system's corruption. She leaves the system and then starts to build power in her own system outside the negative incentives of the other. She is then able to use her superpowers and the power she has with this charity or whatever to help weak normal people and beat up the evil superheroes. The Boys seems to suggest that perhaps the power corrupts framework isn't useful, that power doesn't make people do bad things. Some people just want to do bad things, and acquiring power allows them to cause harm on a larger scale. Having greater power makes greater suffering easier to create, but by saying that power inherently corrupts, we're kind of giving a pass to people who use power for selfish or evil reasons, and erasing those who have used power to do good things. Okay, but if the Boys doesn't believe that power is an inherently corruptive force, then why is a huge part of the premise that superheroes are shitty and bad in this universe? As I already mentioned, the show is filled with characters and references that remind the viewer of other, more positive superhero media, but characterizes them more negatively. This works with the other 2 points to give the Boys a vibe of being more realistic, a parody of other superhero stories that shows what they would actually be like, based in the universally accepted logic that power corrupts. I mean, they took Superman and turned him into a sociopathic, narcissistic, breast milk drinking weirdo, and it all stems from his immense power and resulting god complex, right? Well, if you watch The Boys, you'll find out that there's actually another Superman analog character in the show. Kind of. Ryan, Homelander's son, and the best character. Ryan is biologically related to Homelander and seemingly has the same powers, so we should end up with 2 evil Supermen. But we don't. Ryan isn't like his father. When we meet him, he's a nice, well-behaved kid who loves his mom and seems to enjoy learning about the world. He doesn't seem at all interested in using his powers or developing them until long after Homelander and his Nazi girlfriend show up to try corrupting him. He cries when he hurts people, despite Homelander's best efforts to make him feel superior to normal humans. And he doesn't share Homelander's insane narcissism and need for people to like him. Every time someone slightly brushes against Homelander's glass ego, we get one of these. Meanwhile, after crashing Ryan's first save, we see him surprised when Ryan doesn't care at all that he was being upstaged. He cares that he accidentally killed someone. Ryan is not another evil Superman, and that's not because he's lacking in power, it's because he has different character traits than Homelander. A person's personality is shaped mostly by the way they were raised, and understanding that makes it clear why Ryan is turning out differently from Homelander. Homelander was raised in a cold, sterile lab by scientists who tortured him and taught him to be dependent on the approval of others. Ryan was raised by his mother to be kind, to value learning, and not care much about his powers or popularity. After her death, his path has been a lot more shaky. Other people much less perfect than Becca have been forced into the role of raising Ryan and saving him from the influence of Homelander, and there's certainly been moments where I've been afraid he won't turn out as good of a boy as I would hope. But if anything, Ryan has been set up to grow into a kind of flawed Superman, a character with realistic human problems and trauma, but at his core, genuinely cares about humanity, wants to do good for the world, and help people with the immense power he happens to have. I don't know if The Boys will actually take Ryan's story in this direction, but the fact that it isn't definitive is significant. The Boys is not a show that confirms Superman would actually be evil, and it's not a show that places uncritical trust in Superman to be good. It highlights the true problem of power, not that it inherently corrupts, but that it allows people to impact others on a much larger scale, and whether they use it for good or bad isn't always certain, especially when power is often earned in systems that incentivize immoral action. It raises a question: is it possible for someone with such godlike powers to not develop into an evil narcissist? And the answer seems to be at least maybe, and that's hopeful enough for me. Let's look back at that old dead person quote. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Tends to? That seems a bit uncertain, buddy. Great men are almost always bad men. Almost always. It's starting to sound like the truth isn't an overgeneralized extreme statement, but actually lies in the more nuanced middle. Aristotle wins again. And maybe, just a thought, we can stop relying on the random quotes of dead people and shape our worldviews with our own thoughts. We think The Boys is cool because it's like realistic, and we know this is what would actually happen if superheroes were real. Unlike those dumb feel-good stories, which we enjoy despite them being corny and idealistic. But maybe, actually, we like those stories because they're idealistic and make us feel happy. Or even, hold on to your seats for this one, those movies also have a piece of the truth in them. We enjoy them because we know that it's possible for good people to gain power and do good things with it, and we want that to happen in real life. So, make it happen. Did you make up your mind on where you think The Boys lies on the question of power and personal corruption? Tell me in the comments. And again, I don't know if they're gonna go in this direction with Ryan specifically, but season 5 is supposed to be the last season, so if they do go this way when that comes out, I'll make another video and say, I told you so.